Hey, Michelle, how's it going today? How are you?
Good, Lindsay. How are you?
Good. What are we talking about today? What's the topic for our listeners?
Okay, I'm excited about this one. So, Lindsay, I have a question though. Have you ever made a joke that didn't land?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Sometimes I'll tell a joke that I think is funny and clever, and nope.
Doesn't
It didn't,
land yet?
yeah, it doesn't
Mm.
land. What about you? I mean, as a stand up comedian in
Oh,
your earlier life, in your other
yes.
life, I
Yes,
imagine,
my other
Michelle,
life.
that must have happened a few times. That's just the
Of
nature of the
oh, that was
job.
the whole thing. Yeah, and it's one of those things where you just learn from it and you try to adjust or see what works and doesn't work but you can't get too upset by it. You just have to move forward, right?
Well, I imagine that is the ultimate lesson in how to be present when you're on that stage and your joke doesn't land. You have no choice but to keep going to the next one. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Yes.
seen it in the movies. I've seen it in the movies. So,
Yes,
Michelle,
exactly.
how does this relate to today's topic? Your jokes that don't land.
Well, guys, we are going to talk about this common expression that seems to be one of those trending ones lately. I've been hearing it
Oh,
a lot. Yeah.
oh,
So hit follow wherever you are listening to the All Ears English podcast. And also, we've been doing a lot of good episodes about these English phrases, trendy English phrases. So head on over. We did episode 2268. I think you did this with Aubrey. It was put out
yeah.
dumpster fires with these trendy English phrases. So listen to that
Yeah.
one.
This has really been the summer of trends, Michelle, when it comes to
Yeah,
language
it's
trends. We
true.
we could put together a whole course just based on what we've taught this summer on the podcast. Trendy language, and this is one of them too. It's interesting that you're hearing this one more often, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it is interesting. So the expression is something doesn't land, or you could say
Mhm.
something didn't land, or
Mhm.
even something doesn't land well or didn't land
Yes.
well. But the idea is something doesn't land. So what on earth does this mean, Lindsay?
Yeah. Well, before we talk about the definition, I do want to remind our listeners to hit that follow button again to get these trendy English, phrases. I'm sure there'll be another
Yes.
one coming up next week or the week after. We just keep going into them. So make sure you hit follow. But yeah, so in terms of what that means, well,
Yeah.
imagine an airplane landing and I'm not going to make an airplane joke because crazy things are happening these days. But
That's
yeah,
true.
like you hope that all the wheels meet the ground eventually. They if you do watch
Yeah.
them though, by the way, they never really land perfectly. It's always a little bit topsy turvy, like your summer, Michelle.
Ah.
Um, it's a little
Yeah.
scary if you.
Yeah. Well, there's always
So
that moment when you're landing when then you know that big bump is coming, and just for a
yes,
second, I'm prepping
I
myself for it because it's just this bounce, and it's kind of sudden.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, so I guess the idea of something, hitting the ground, and that means essentially something resonating. It
Mhm.
resonates or it doesn't resonate, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's about if something doesn't land, it was not understood, it didn't work well, it didn't resonate. Lindsay, I like that I think summing that up into that word is really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. People don't get it if it doesn't land or they just don't think it's funny, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So this is definitely commonly used when someone's telling a joke. So you could say something like, I know you were trying to be funny, but it didn't land. That means people didn't get it. It didn't work.
Right, like you say, "Did you get it?" Right? "Did you get it?"
Right.
means, "Did you understand it?"
Right.
Um, right, yeah, and I think this can also be used in the category of when someone tells kind of an off-color joke that is
Mm,
sort of inappropriate and they have the wrong audience. Maybe they could get away with it
yes.
in front of a certain audience, close friends, but then they misjudge who they're around
Yes.
and it doesn't land, but in that sense, it means it felt maybe offensive or wrong or out of place,
Awkward.
awkward, out of
Yeah.
place. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. So when something doesn't land, it is kind of awkward.
Yeah, so there's a lot to think about when we wanna wind up a joke, right? Who's around you? Who's listening? What state of mind are they in? Oh my gosh.
Mhm, mhm. And it's not only used with jokes, although I think that's one of the most common ways, but it could be
Mm.
used in other ways as well. So let's do a couple other examples. Can you explain that to the audience again? That example didn't seem to land.
Okay, so that's not a joke, right? That's just explaining something, and someone tried to use a story or an example, and they didn't understand it. It didn't resonate,
Yeah,
again.
it didn't
Mhm.
resonate. They didn't get it. Or what's another example, Lindsay?
Okay, I told her the situation, but it didn't land well. She didn't seem to understand why we were making the changes and didn't agree with it at all. Okay.
Mm.
Not good.
Exactly. It didn't land well. Or the PR campaign didn't land with the audience, so they moved on to plan B.
Yes. It's interesting. Sometimes, brands will do some kind of big campaign that just
Yeah.
doesn't land for the moment and the culture and the audience, and it just is a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's too
Um,
bad if everybody was excited about it and then
I
it just you
know.
never know until you try, right?
You never know. Really
Mhm.
interesting. So is this formal or informal? Would we use this at work, Michelle? What do you think? It sounds like some of our examples are sort of work related, right?
Yeah. I think it can be anything. I think you can use it at work, in your personal life, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I would definitely go ahead and feel free to use this
Yeah.
anytime in your life that makes sense.
100%. I agree. It's about getting the right context for the use. And it's a very
Yes.
handy one, I think. So we're going to take a quick break and then come back and keep talking about more examples. All right? Here we go.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle. So where do we go from here? What would you say?
Yeah. So you can also talk about something that does land. You can
Oh.
use this in the opposite. It's not only, oh, that doesn't land, that didn't land. So you can talk about it in more of an affirmative way. So, for
Mm.
example, let's make sure this lands. Maybe a picture would help.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? But I feel like people don't say, "Oh, that landed," right? So I think the way
Mm,
you phrased it here is the more common. Let's prep this
interesting.
correctly to make sure it lands. Will
Right.
this land? People
Right.
also might
That's
say, "Will
true.
this fly?" But that's another episode for another day. Will it
Ah.
fly? Well, you got to be able to do both on an airplane, right? Will it fly?
You
Will it
gotta
land?
yes, you sure do, and you need to be able to take off, which is another thing.
Will it take off, right? Oh my gosh, this is great. Oh, Michelle, we could do a whole other episode on airplane vocabulary as it relates to our lives
I
or
love
projects.
it.
That's so great.
Yes.
Okay, guys, hit the follow button to come back for more All Ears
This is
English.
coming to you guys.
It's coming to you. It's coming. So yeah, so let's make sure this lands. Maybe a picture would help. And I think this is such a key skill, especially if you work
Mhm.
in any kind of marketing or really
Yeah,
technology, or you
yeah.
design technology, design apps. You're constantly thinking about how the audience is going to receive something. I mean, we're always
Yes.
thinking about you guys and how you're going to receive these topics
Right.
constantly, right?
It's true,
Yes.
we have to make sure that I think we have a good episode title already.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
for
"Let's make
sure.
sure this episode lands," or something like that, but yeah,
Yeah.
we always want our episodes to land with
Yes.
our audience, right? We want you guys to resonate with it, to understand it. So we think of lots of examples. We think
Right.
of our conversations, having a good time, and how we interact with the audience. Lots to think about to make sure our shows land.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, we publish so many episodes, on this show, just 20 episodes a month. So they don't all land as well as others, right? And we know that. And so anyone that creates a lot of content or art or something or music is going to know not everything
Yeah.
they do is going to land, but hopefully of some of those will land, right? And so when you
Hmm.
think about your own work, what is it that you're putting out into the world that you're hoping will land? Apply this to your
Mm.
own body of work that you're creating in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think Lindsay, you had a good point about maybe, yeah, we don't say, oh, that landed. I guess you could say that landed well, but it's not that common. But we
Yeah.
do talk about it in terms of preparations, right? Let's
Right.
make sure this lands. We need this to land.
Yeah.
What can we do
Mhm.
to make sure this lands? So it's
Right.
in terms of preparing for something is when I would think you would use it in that way.
Exactly. That's where you're gonna hear it more commonly. So,
Yeah.
other ways to say this, Michelle, would be something is understood. And we said
Yeah.
earlier, resonate is a great one, right?
Mhm,
The
mhm,
whole plan wasn't understood by the employees, so they came up with a new idea.
mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
And then this is the one we've been talking about a lot, to get something, they didn't
Yeah.
get the joke.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get it? Right? I don't get it. I don't understand. I think our listeners
Right.
know this one for sure. It's very
Yes.
common slang
Yes.
language. Or makes sense. That didn't make sense to me. Can you write it all out and start again? Also
Mhm.
very common, right?
Very common. Yep,
Yes.
exactly. Lindsay, is there a comedian whose jokes don't land with you? Is there anyone who you can think of that you don't really like their comedy, or maybe a show that doesn't
I
land with
don't know.
you?
I don't know if like I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Fallon. I know you I think you love Jimmy Fallon probably, right? No? I don't know what you think of
No,
him.
I used to. He was I used to wanna marry him. I mean, I thought he was I thought he was adorable, but, no, I liked him on
No.
SNL, but I don't watch his shows now.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if his style lands with me as much. I really like Samantha Bee. She's really funny, I think. She
Mm.
does a lot of smart political humor. But yeah, Jimmy Fallon maybe doesn't land with me quite as much as others, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
comedians to watch.
Mhm.
Wanda Sykes is fantastic.
Oh, didn't you see her
Yeah.
live?
Yeah, yeah, we went to see her back in May, in a
Yeah.
sweltering, auditorium, but it was great, it was great. Really funny, classic comedian.
Uh,
So,
uh-huh,
find who
uh-huh.
lands with you guys, find your favorite comedian, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
What about you,
exactly.
Michelle? Who's your favorite comedian? Whose
Um
jokes land with you more than others?
I'm gonna go Conan O'Brien. I love Conan.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I've always loved him. Not everything lands with me, not everything, but I do love
yeah,
him. And then I do love Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David. Who
mhm.
else do I love? Oh, you know who's funny is John Mulaney. Do you ever listen to him?
Oh, I he sounds very familiar. Yeah, sounds very familiar. Mhm,
I'm gonna send you one of my favorite clips of his later, and I think you're
mhm.
gonna be hysterical.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'll have to check it out. There's also
yeah.
Tig Notaro, she's a stand-up comedian, I think and
Oh,
an
yeah, she's
actress too,
funny.
she's funny. There's a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Oh, this is fun, guys. This is, I mean, a great conversation topic. People love to talk
Yeah.
about their favorite comedians.
They love to find new comedians because nowadays
Yes.
with social media, we can pull up clips and we can put these in our feed there's some real value to just laughing every day, you know? It makes
Oh my
life
gosh.
feel lighter. It feels good in your body to laugh, you know?
Yep. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Alright, so should we do a role play?
Yeah, let's do it. So here, oh, I'm a comedian. That doesn't feel right, Michelle. It should be the other way around. I'm gonna practice my jokes on you. I think you're the comedian here,
That's
Michelle.
why
But
I
okay,
did it, 'cause I thought it was too easy. I wanted to switch it
right?
up.
Okay, here we go. Okay, what do you think about the joke about the couch?
Mm, to be honest, it didn't land for me.
What can make it better?
I think it would make sense to the audience if you paused a bit before the punchline.
You think they would get it then?
I think it would help a lot. Otherwise, the joke may not be understood.
Okay, let me try it that way.
Great.
So, Michelle, when you were doing stand up comedy, were you studying delivery as well? That kind of thing? Are there certain rules for comedians on the stage? You got to pause before this and that. I have no clue.
You know what? It was so long ago, honestly. I can't say a lot about technique, but I know that comic timing is everything, right? Some people just
Mhm.
have this incredible timing. They do a pause, they do something that
Oh, yes.
elevates the joke so much. Maybe it wouldn't have been as funny, but the
Oh,
timing was hilarious. So, yeah,
I wonder if that's learned or more in our
innate.
bones. It's just a natural talent innate. Yeah. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah,
A little bit of
yeah.
both? Yeah.
Probably a little bit of both. I think it's funny, actually, just the other day, this reminds me of a conversation, not to get too off topic, but I do think that people have to have some sort of innate talent for something. I was talking to someone who was helping, us make some design choices for my
Yeah.
husband's office, and I was asking her, she's a really good interior designer, and I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I always when I was little, I wanted to be an interior designer,
Uh,
and but I have no talent for that. It's not."
right.
And so I said,
Right.
"Is that something that can be learned really?" And she said, "Yes, but you do have to have some innate,
Yes.
you have to have an eye for it." So I think the
Mhm.
same thing with the comedy and the timing, things like that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's kinda like being an athlete, to go the highest levels to the Olympics or even the high levels of sport
Yeah,
competitions, you probably are naturally, physically, kinesthetically talented, and then you nurture that talent by doing years and years of waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, we just had the Olympics and
yeah.
we saw all the stories,
Right.
right, Michelle?
Yeah.
So it's talent and then incredible dedication added on to
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
interesting.
Exactly. So hard work and dedication. So,
Yes.
and we know that
Mhm.
our students have that. So our listeners. So let's go
Yeah.
through this role play and see what we
Okay.
use. So
All right.
let's see. What did I say first?
All right. You said, to be honest, it didn't land for me. Right. And that is the
Mhm.
more common use of that in the negative, right? That's what we're saying today.
More
Hmm.
common. Yep, absolutely. And then I said, I think it would make sense to the audience if you paused a bit before the punchline. And guys, punchline is a great word,
Oh,
and we are going
bonus.
to put it on our list for today in our app, so
Yes.
that you can have this word in your personal power list.
Guys, go check out the app at allearsenglish.com/app. Only premium users get to see those tappable words, save them to your list, but you can do a 7-day free trial. All right. And
Mhm,
then
mhm.
I said, you think they would get it then? And again, we know this phrase to get it. I don't get
To
it.
get
I
it.
do get it. I get it. Right. We know this phrase.
I get
Right.
it. Yep.
Um, and next one, Michelle.
I said, otherwise, the joke may not be understood. So
Excellent. So
another
that's kind of speaking more in that passive voice,
right,
right? Then
exactly.
taking
Yep.
the emphasis off, they won't understand you and focusing on the joke as the subject, right? Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly.
So we know the formula now to success in any industry is just raw talent, added on to massive amounts of practice and training. Good
That's
to know.
right. That's it. That's all you need. So,
That's all you need.
um, well, as far as takeaways go, I would say not everything we do lands, and that's okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
If you don't keep on trying things, you're never gonna move forward. So even if somebody says, like in that role play, I said, "Oh, it didn't land, and maybe you should try this or that." It's about making these tweaks and having that dedication to make sure things land.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Just putting something out into the world and then getting some kind of analytics or response feedback and then tweaking based on that. I love it. It's such a good way to go through life, Michelle. That's how to get to that expert level. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so guys, even if something doesn't land, you try a new
Keep
expression.
trying. Yes.
Right, keep trying. Just you'll be able to make it land some other way.
So inspiring, Michelle. I love it. All right. Great. Hopefully, we'll come back to this topic another day. And thanks for being on the mic.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.